Alright, so I've already jumped ahead because I'm expecting you to be able to do all this already. You need to open up your template, save the drawing into your circles, mirror, and holes folder, and then name that drawing circle, mirrors, and holes. And you're going to only bring in a front and a top view, and just so you know, and an isometric. So front, top, and isometric, and these are all a half inch these are all at a half scale, these three views, or 1 to 2. So you'll also need to fill in your field text for your title block, circle, mirrors, and holes, the scale, all of that. Remember that this is shaded. And then now let's jump into the other stuff. Quick review, you will also need to add in your general notes, which will indicate your material, mass, volume, and cost. So you have a note that looks like this. Remember to figure out the cost. You're going to take your volume and multiply it times $2.76. If you forgot how to do those general notes, go back to that previous video that we just did and watch that again to bring that in. But again, cost, take your volume, times it by $2.76. Alright, let's go ahead and jump in and talk about how to dimension this thing. So we only need 2 views. We don't need all 3. We can get away with 2. Some things that we need to take care of first before we even start dimensioning. If you ever have circles, you must always include center lines and center marks. So the first thing I'm going to go to is annotate up here. So my annotate ribbon. And then under symbols, there is a center mark button. So whenever you have circles, you always add center marks. Now the next thing with circles is if you have concentric circles like these two that share the same center, you always click the outermost one. So I'm going to click on this one and it adds in the center mark. Then I'm going to click on this one and it adds in the center mark. Same thing goes for these. I'm going to click that one and I'm also going to click on that one to add in those. So that's all the circles that I see. So I can hit escape to get out of the center mark tool. A little bit of adjustments. I'm going to click on this center line, so I left click it once. I'm going to hover over these green dots and just drag them in a little bit so that they don't go into this part of the model. So I just drag those in. And then I'm going to go up here to these center marks and I'm going to just drag these out a little bit so I can actually see that there's a center mark a little bit there. Just like so. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just dragging that center mark out on all 4 sides to actually see that it's there. Grab this down a little bit, so something along those lines. This one, yeah, let's just go past the object a little bit, just like that. Do that on all of them. So just like so. Alright, now the other thing I need is if you have circles, you're typically going to have center lines. And center lines indicate the center of, let's say, hidden circles. So for example, like here, you see the counter bores. So you see this hole is being shown here, but it's hidden. So these hidden lines are dashed, indicating those holes. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a center line. Now there's 2 different ways we can do a center line. There's this type, where you just actually draw it in, or there's this type where you're actually using the center of 2 lines. So we're going to use this one, which is called a center line bisector. So I'm going to click on that, and all I'm going to do is click the center of this line and then the center of this line, and it adds in our center line for us. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, that one, and then that one, and then hit escape. And then the last thing I need to do is add in a center line connecting these 2 because they're both on the same plane. So what I'm going to do for that one is use just this basic center line where I can just draw it in. So I'm just going to left click this edge and then I'm going to left click this edge right there. So what that tells us is that this counter bore is on the same plane as this one in this direction. Alright, so that is all of the, oh no, we need one, oh I lost it, wait, where did that go? Click center line again, left click, oh, when I hit escape it got rid of it. Okay, center line, so I left click this, and then I have to right click create. That's the part I forgot. So you left click that end, left click that end, and then right click create. If you don't do that, when you hit escape, it's going to go away. Whew, alright, we are almost there. And wait, I just lost this, so I'm going to extend that back out. There we go, those two. Alright, now we need to do some dimensioning. So to do this, we are going to start with, let's start with the front view. And we're pretty much going to replicate all the dimensions that you see here, but on our flat 2D drawing. So I'm going to go to dimension, and I'm just going to start dimensioning. I'm going to click on this one, bring that out. Now that is 0.5, but it's also TYP period. So that's all caps. TYP stands for typical. That means it's going to stay 0.5 throughout this entire shape, just like you see there. And then let's go ahead and add in this dimension right here, which is also going to be TYP. Now you're wondering, well, why did I leave that down here? That's kind of breaking the rule. Well, I didn't want to run that up through here because then it's going to go through this circle. So I kind of had to do it. I had to put it down there. Let's give some radius dimensions. So I'm going to click on this circle and just move my mouse out here and then left click again right there. Say OK. And then I'm going to left click this circle, put that one right about there, left click that, say OK. And then I need to locate the center of this circle off of this edge, so I'm going to left click that point, left click that point, move my mouse up and drop in that 4-inch dimension, say OK. Whoop, and that one was supposed to be typical, so I'm going to hit escape to get out of the dimension tool. I'm going to double click back in on that dimension, and I'm going to hit space, TYP period for typical. Remember, all caps. Hit escape to get off of that dimension. And then I need an overall width dimension from here to here, and that'll go right there. Say OK. Now, if you ever need to, remember, hit escape to get out of the dimension tool. If things are getting tight here, you can always move the views a little bit. So if I got to move this top view up a little bit, I can. If dimensions aren't where you'd like them to be, you can click them and move them if they're running into something else. So you can always move and edit things. You could double click back into dimensions to maybe add typical. So if things aren't working out, just go ahead and move them around a little bit and make them work so they're not running into each other. Alright, so that should do it for the front view. Let's go into the top view. I need a depth dimension, 2 location dimensions for the holes, and then a size dimension for the holes. So I'm going to start out with the location dimension for the holes. So I'm going to go from here to here. And remember that was typical. Say OK. And then I'm going to do the other location dimension, which is from there to there. And I'm going to drop that one in. Now that one was to the 3rd decimal place. So I'm going to click on, in this edit dimension window, I'm going to click on precision and tolerance. I'm going to change those units right here to go to the 3rd decimal place there. Say OK. Oh, and I forgot to do something. Hit escape to get out of the dimension tool. Double click back into that. Go back to text. We're supposed to add a typical. Say OK. So there's that. And I'm going to actually move that one. So I'm going to left click, hold it, and move it over to here. And then where am I going to go next? We need a depth dimension. So I'm going to go dimension, click on this line, get my depth there, say OK. And then last but not least is the counter bores. We need to give all that information now. I don't want to have to type all that out. So instead, under the feature notes panel, I'm going to use the hole and thread note tool. So I'm going to click on that. And all you have to do is simply click the outer edge right here once, move your mouse, and then it drops in all that information. The only thing it's missing is the 2x. So I'm going to left click that, and then I'm going to hit escape on the keyboard to get out of it, and I'm going to double click back in there because I need to add a 2x in the front of this because there's 2 of them. So 2 capital X and then a space. Say OK. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your finished drawing. You just need to make sure that your general notes is filled out, save it, preview the print it, turn it in, and finally screen clip it into your binder.